the spotlight hit Ernesto, a 12-year-old boy with calloused hands and a voice that seemed too big for his small frame. Years ago, he had stunned the world with his talent, only to vanish quietly, helping his struggling family. Tonight, he steps onto the AGT stage, again nervous, humble, but ready to show that kindness and heart matter more than fame. The backstage of AGT 2025 buzzed with energy, contestants pacing nervously. Assistants rushing past with clipboards, cameras zooming in on every corner. Bright lights flashed from all directions, yet in the middle of the chaos, a small figure walked with quiet determination. Ernesto, the carpenter's boy, adjusted the worn strap of his backpack and clutched a small wooden pendant his father had carved years ago. The pendant, a simple miniature hammer, symbolized both his roots and the love that had shaped him into the boy standing here tonight. He paused near a stack of heavy equipment, noticing a janitor struggling to carry a box twice his size. Most people would have hurried past, nerves tightening in anticipation of the stage, but Ernesto's eyes softened. "Here, let me help you," he said, bending down to lift one side of the box. The janitor's eyes widened in surprise, a weary smile spreading across his face. "Thank you, son. You have a good heart," he murmured. Ernesto nodded, gave a small shrug, and moved on, his heart lighter for the simple act of kindness. As he continued walking, memories came flooding back, memories of a simpler stage, a smaller audience, and a family that depended on him more than anyone realized. He remembered singing in dusty town halls for a few coins, just to help pay for his mother's medicine. He remembered nights in their tiny home, where the smell of sawdust from his father's workshop mingled with the aroma of his mother's cooking. He had once dreamed only of applause, but now he realized that every note he sang carried something far more powerful: hope. The backstage area was chaotic. Contestants rehearsed, hair and makeup teams fussed over last-minute adjustments, and producers scurried back and forth. Some glanced at Ernesto with curiosity. A quiet boy in a plain white shirt and jeans didn't look like a typical contestant. But that was the thing about Ernesto: his talent wasn't flashy or loud, it was genuine. It was a voice that came from the heart, shaped by years of struggle, sacrifice, and love. As he approached the waiting area, Ernesto noticed another contestant sitting alone, trembling with nerves. Instead of ignoring her, he gave a small, reassuring smile. "You'll do great," he whispered. The girl's eyes widened, and a shy smile returned. In that moment, backstage wasn't just about competition, it was a small community. And Ernesto, unknowingly, was a quiet beacon of encouragement. Finally, he stopped in front of the stage entrance, the thrum of the crowd beyond the curtain reaching his ears. He took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and felt the weight of every lesson he had learned: humility, kindness, patience, and courage. Tonight wasn't just about winning. It was about showing the world the strength of a compassionate heart, the resilience of a boy who had grown up building tables and chairs with his father, singing lullabies to his sick mother, and dreaming of something bigger while staying grounded in love. Ernesto opened his eyes, stepped forward, and walked toward the stage, his small frame carrying a presence far larger than anyone could imagine. The spotlight would soon shine on him, but before that, he had already proven something far more important. Greatness isn't measured by fame or applause, it's measured by the quiet acts of humanity that ripple far beyond the stage. Ernesto found a quiet corner backstage, away from the chatter, cameras, and flashing lights. His fingers traced the wooden pendant hanging from his neck, the miniature hammer his father had carved for him years ago. The simple object carried a lifetime of memories, a reminder of his roots, of long nights in the small workshop where the scent of sawdust mixed with the soft hum of his mother's lullabies. It was in that modest home that Ernesto had first discovered the power of music, not for fame or applause, but as a way to heal, to give hope, and to connect with others. He closed his eyes and let the memories wash over him. He remembered sitting on a worn wooden stool, his tiny hands clumsily pressing the keys of a second-hand piano. His mother, exhausted from long hours at the market, would hum along quietly, her voice fragile but comforting. Those were the first songs he ever sang, not to a crowd, not to judges, but to soothe a tired, aching heart. He remembered the evenings when the electricity would fail, leaving the house in darkness. Yet he and his father would light a single candle and continue building furniture together. Each hammer strike, each measured cut, had taught him patience, discipline, and the quiet joy of creation. Suddenly, the bustling sounds of the stage reminded him of the journey that had brought him here. Years ago, he had stepped onto the AGT stage for the first time, a shy boy with a voice that startled everyone, including the judges. That performance had opened doors, but life had other plans. His mother had fallen ill, and Ernesto had made the selfless choice to step away from the spotlight to care for his family. In those years away from fame, he had learned the value of sacrifice, humility, and true courage. He realized that while the applause of the world could fade, the love he gave and received at home would last a lifetime. Now, back on the AGT stage, those lessons shaped every thought, every beat of his heart. He wasn't just singing for himself. He was singing for every child who had ever been told their dreams were too big. For every family struggling to make ends meet, for every person who had been overlooked or underestimated. He understood something profound. Talent was nothing without empathy, and success was empty without kindness. A soft knock on the door startled him. Another contestant peeked in, visibly nervous. Ernesto smiled gently and offered a small nod of encouragement. He didn't know her story, but he knew the feeling of stepping into the unknown, the fear of failing, the longing to be heard. His own nerves settled slightly as he realized that true courage was not the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. Ernesto took a deep breath and allowed the memories to ground him. Every struggle, every small act of kindness, every late night song sung for love rather than applause, they had all led him here. As he prepared to step onto the stage once more, he carried more than a voice. He carried the essence of his life, the lessons of his family, and the unshakable belief that music, when sung with a pure heart, could touch souls, change hearts, and inspire hope. He opened his eyes, heart steady, ready to transform fear into courage, memory into melody, and life's struggles into a song that would resonate far beyond the stage. The curtains slowly parted, and a hush fell over the AGT audience. Ernesto stepped forward, his small frame appearing almost fragile under the glare of the stage lights. The roar of the crowd seemed distant now, replaced by the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He held the microphone tightly, feeling its familiar weight, yet tonight it was more than a tool, it was a bridge between his life, his struggles, and every soul listening. He closed his eyes, letting the memories of his journey fill him. The dusty streets of his hometown, the warm smell of sawdust in his father's workshop, the gentle hum of his mother's lullabies, each memory became a note, each heartbeat a rhythm. As he lifted his voice, it wasn't just singing, it was storytelling. Every word carried the weight of years of sacrifice, love, and resilience. The audience leaned in, captivated by a voice that seemed impossibly rich and raw for a boy so young. Simon Cowell, sitting rigid in his chair, furrowed his brow, initially skeptical. But as the first notes settled into the theater, his expression softened. There was something undeniable, something almost magical, about the purity of Ernesto's voice. Each phrase told a story of hardship met with hope, of a young boy growing into a man shaped by love and loss. The judges exchanged glances. The usual rehearsed critiques replaced with stunned silence. Ernesto's performance was more than technique. It was emotion distilled into sound. He hit each note with precision, yes, but it was the feeling behind it, the trembling vulnerability, the quiet strength that held the room spellbound. Tears formed in the eyes of audience members who had never met him, yet felt every moment of his life through his song. Somewhere in the middle of the melody, Ernesto's gaze shifted toward the camera, toward the millions watching at home, and he sang, not for recognition, but for connection. Mid-song the lighting subtly shifted, bathing the stage in a warm, golden glow. The moment felt suspended in time. Ernesto's voice soared, reaching highs that seemed almost impossible, yet never forced or strained. Each note was an act of courage, each pause a testament to the depth of his experience. The crowd was on its feet before the song even ended, but Ernesto remained grounded, fully present, pouring every ounce of himself into the music. As the final notes faded into a profound silence, the audience sat frozen for a heartbeat, as if afraid to break the spell. Then the applause erupted, thunderous, heartfelt, unstoppable. Tears streamed down faces, hands clapped, and whistles echoed. Simon Cowell, usually a man of measured praise, leaned forward, visibly moved, his hand hovering over the golden buzzer. For once, words seemed unnecessary. The boy's voice had spoken louder than anything could. In that moment, Ernesto realized that this stage was not about winning, nor about fame. It was about touching hearts, inspiring hope, and proving that true talent, when paired with kindness and sincerity, could transcend any obstacle. And as the audience continued to cheer, Ernesto stood still, heart full, knowing he had already achieved something far greater than any trophy could ever represent. As Ernesto's song reached its emotional peak, something in the audience caught his eye. In the front row, a young girl clutched her mother's hand, her small face streaked with tears. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mixture of fear, sadness, and awe. She reminded him of himself, at her age timid, uncertain, but carrying a heart full of hope that the world sometimes overlooked. In that instant, Ernesto knew he had to reach her, not just with his voice, but with every ounce of compassion he had learned from his family and life experiences. Without breaking the flow of the song, he tilted his gaze toward her and softened his tone. The lyrics subtly shifted, becoming an unspoken dedication to anyone who had ever felt alone or unheard. Each note seemed to wrap around her like a warm embrace, and she visibly relaxed, her tears slowly giving way to a fragile smile. The audience, noticing the connection, grew quiet once again. Sensing that something extraordinary was happening, this was no longer just a performance. It was a conversation between hearts. The room seemed to shrink around them. Judges leaned forward, captivated by the intimacy of the moment. Simon Cowell, usually reserved and guarded, had his hand over his mouth, his eyes glistening. Ernesto's voice carried the weight of every sacrifice he had ever made, the nights caring for his ailing mother, the long hours helping his father in the workshop, the moments when he felt invisible and powerless. And yet, through it all, he had never stopped believing in the power of kindness, the magic of empathy, and the healing strength of music. The young girl's mother whispered something to her, and the girl nodded, her hands gripping Ernesto's invisible message of hope. In the audience, whispers spread like wildfire. People were crying, smiling, wiping their eyes, hands with strangers. The performance had transcended entertainment, had become an experience of shared humanity. Every note, every tremor of emotion, every slight falter in his voice told a story of vulnerability transformed into courage. Isolation transformed into connection. For Ernesto, the moment was humbling. He realized that no matter how many stages he stood on, no matter how many lights shone down on him, the true power of his gift lay not in impressing judges or winning trophies, but in touching hearts and inspiring others to believe in themselves. His gaze softened, not toward cameras or fame, but toward those who needed to hear a message of hope, resilience, and compassion. As the final chord resonated, the young girl wiped her tears and smiled, clapping with all her strength. The audience erupted into a standing ovation, the noise echoing the impact of his gesture. Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer, overcome with emotion, and leaned forward. Visibly moved by the depth of empathy and courage Ernesto had shared. In that single moment, it became clear, music could heal, inspire, and unite, and kindness could be louder than any applause. Ernesto stepped back slightly, heart racing, a gentle smile forming on his lips. He had not only sung for the audience, he had sung for the human spirit, and in return, it had embraced him unconditionally. For a moment, time seemed to stop. Golden confetti rained down from above, sparkling under the stage lights like tiny falling stars. Ernesto stood frozen, eyes wide, breath trembling as the golden buzzer sound echoed through the arena. The audience roared with emotion, but to Ernesto, everything felt distant, soft. Blurred, like he was standing inside a dream he had never dared to imagine. He looked down at his trembling hands, still clutching the microphone. Just minutes earlier, those hands had carried the weight of his fears, his memories, and his hope. Now, they carried something else, validation. Not of fame or competition, but of his heart. The same heart his parents had nurtured with love and sacrifice. The judges stood. Their applause felt warm, genuine, human. But it was Simon Cowell who stepped forward first, something rare, almost unheard of. His voice wavered as he spoke. Ernesto, what you just did wasn't just singing, it was healing. You remind all of us why we fell in love with music in the first place. The crowd erupted again, but Ernesto's eyes drifted toward the young girl in the front row. She was smiling narrowly, smiling, wiping away the last of her tears. Her mother's arm wrapped lovingly around her shoulders. Ernesto felt a pull in his chest, a quiet understanding that what had happened wasn't a performance, it was a moment of human connection. And it mattered. As the confetti continued to fall, he stepped closer to the edge of the stage and pressed a hand over his heart. The gesture wasn't rehearsed. It came from somewhere deep within. A wave of emotion surged through the audience, and many pressed their hands to their hearts in return, a silent exchange of compassion, gratitude, and unity. Backstage, his father watched from a monitor, tears pooling in his eyes. For years, he had carried guilt, believing his struggles had held his son back. But now, seeing Ernesto shine with such humility and strength, he realized the opposite was true. Their simple life, their hardships, their love, all of it had shaped a boy with a heart big enough to move the world. Ernesto took a shaky breath. As the music swelled, he wasn't thinking about the next round of the competition. He wasn't thinking about fame, or lights, or cameras. He was thinking about the countless people watching from their own small towns, their own struggles, their own quiet battles. And he hoped they felt what he felt now, that even in the hardest moments, kindness could be a lifeline, and hope could be a beginning. The cheers began to soften, replaced by a warm, embracing silence. Ernesto raised his eyes, his voice steady as he spoke his final words of the night, words that would echo across social media, news channels, and hearts around the world. Thank you for listening. If you're going through something, don't give up. Someone out there needs your voice. Someone out there needs your kindness." The audience rose once more, not for a performance, but for a reminder one. Bo's courage had awakened something deeply human in all of them. And as Ernesto stepped off the stage, he knew this was just the beginning of his journey, not toward fame, but toward touching lives, one heart at a time.